Hello there. I see you found a link to my video. Well, welcome. So, uh, today we're going to talk about the political compass and what it means and why it exists and what's the purpose. So, let's just get right into it. We have a long way to go. Alright, so the box you see in front of you is a political compass. As you can see, it's a square with different colors. It's got four quadrants in it. The top two quadrants are authoritarian left, authoritarian right, and the bottom two are libertarian and both left and right. So just a little pattern there. Alright, so let's just talk about why a compass. So we'll talk about the need for it and why it's very important, how it helped me. Alright, so I'm gonna start with a example of my own. I did not know what the left and the right is, except some basic things. I did not really understand what constitutes for left and right and how they have opposing positions and how sometimes left-wing people can have right-wing positions and vice versa. And that because I had a very linear understanding of the left and right, that is that communism, socialism lives on left and let's say fascism lives on far right. So that did not really help me, but this compass did, and we will see how it helped. Because the reason why it helped me is because the linear compass is, or the linear way of understanding is just not enough. Ideologies have different multitudes, and we need a more complex, not too complex, but a more complex understanding of what the left and right actually is. And a simple line just won't cut it. So let's get into it. Alright, this is the political compass that we saw in the previous part of the video as well. So it's got four quadrants, and if you look at on the right side, you have authoritarian right and libertarian right, which divides the right into two, and same on the left. This is very important. So I'm going to briefly explain the compass. Before that, let me explain you what's authoritarianism and liberalism in general. So we're going to make a small divide here as well, between the rights and the rights and the lefts and the lefts. So the difference between authoritarianism and liberalism would be basically the government and how a society wants to be governed. Traditionally, authoritarian governments would count as socialism, fascism, Nazism, even though those things are related. We don't know about communism because we've never seen how it works. But socialism is definitely authoritarian. A monarchy would be authoritarian. A Catholic theocracy or a general theocracy of any religion would be authoritarian in nature. Basically, people don't have a lot of rights here. Sometimes they don't have any right, and I'm talking about the most basic rights. They do not have, let's say, freedom of speech. They do not have many things. Authoritarian governments believe that the government should be big. The government should be respected in a way that is supreme. It really depends on which kind of authoritarian government we're talking about. A monarch would believe that he has the absolute right to rule everyone as he wishes from God himself. A socialist government would see things that we are the savior of the working class, and we will own, and that's why we will own every means of production. We will run everything. Alright, so that's authoritarian left and right. They often combine. We will see how fascism and Nazism is a very good example of that, how they combine. Alright, so now we look at the libertarian or the liberal governments. So the libertarian governments really start from people like Adam Smith, John Locke, who were classical liberals, and they believe the government should be small. the society should revolve around the individual, whereas on the authoritarian side, the community is the main key and central society. So the community works for each other, no matter left or right. In libertarianism or liberalism, as we call it, the society revolves around the individual. So individual should do what he wants. All right. So this is a society that or the type of government that values freedom more. All right, and it has rights, and the government has a role. Often, the government does not interfere with the personal lives and has a much smaller role as compared to the authoritarian governments. So that's really the basic difference, and that's the difference we see um, come on again and again, and which quadrant is how free and how what kind of governments they like. All right. So another very key thing about this compass would be towards the center, which is here. Let me just grab my cursor, which is here. Uh, Things are much more mild, so these are the centrists, all right. And it's my personal belief that most people actually are in the center. They do not want extreme things. You can have some extreme positions, but like in general, everyone wants to be free. All right. As you go towards the ends, you go into the extremes, which can be bad for humanity. Now we've seen that almost almost for the last 2000 years since we've been counting time. All right, so the extremes are not good, but the centers are like relatively better. But then again, people can have extreme positions that are isolated with their that do not really reflect with how they society. So that's how the compass basically works. So we just talked about this. So this is again a much more complex graph over the left and the right, and authoritarian left and right is, and how things work. So let me just take some time and explain each quadrant in brief, and then we go them in detail. So there you go. All right. So let's start with the authoritarian left. That's the red quadrant. I'm just going to use the colors, which is going to be much easier for me to speak, much easier for the listener to follow. So the red color basically signifies authoritarian left. The ideologies here hail from the works of Karl Marx and other guys like Friedrich Engels. All right, and so here you will see ideologies like socialism, communism, which hasn't really happened ever. Um, Leninism, Stalinism, Trotskyism, Juche. So a lot of these are named after the person who not invented them but really modified the works of Marx. So Stalinism would be a bit different. Leninism would be bit different. Socialism is again an ideology which was tried multiple times during the last century, and every time it resulted in starvation, genocide, or famine. So, a collectivist ideology that the state owns of production. I won't get too much. So people here are authoritarian, and they believe that they don't always believe in democracy. They believe in a communist state. Chinese Communist Party is a very good example of that. You don't have elections, you don't have anything there. All right, so that's what these people believe in, and the government's role is big. It basically does everything. There's not much room for racism, which is like one of the few good things about it. So everyone is equal, and they're based on the principles of egalitarianism, and they critique capitalism and they critique free market economy. Then one more very important thing about them would be religion. They do not like religion, and Karl Marx had a very famous quote saying, "Religion is the opium of the masses." They do not like religion. Let's just move to the blue quadrant, which is the authoritarian right. Authoritarian right again is very interesting. So you have got Nazi right, fascism there, conservatism there, which is much more liberal compared to Nazism and fascism. There's neoliberalism there. There's ultra-capitalism, state ultra-capitalism, and of course monarchy is there. So these will hail from um, these people are many times traditionalists. They believe in conserving what is the status quo. That's conservatism, literally in the word. They do not like change a lot. Religion plays a major role in our society. The United States is a conservative country. The United Kingdom is a conservative country. Uh, they often hail the works of Adam Smith, the great economist Adam Smith. But we'll get into that later. The US is a very good example of that. All right. They don't like much immigration. They believe that culture is very important, the family is very important, religion is very important, our values are very important to us. All right. Now we look at the yellow quadrant, which is the libertarian rights. So they are the cool guys. They only care about, a lot of them only care about money, frankly speaking. Here's where all the money is made as well. So they believe in a free market economy more than the authoritarian right would be. They believe that the role of the government should be really small. They shouldn't infringe upon people's rights, and people should do what they want. All right, and no one should tell them. These guys are also very enthusiastic about guns, especially in the United States. They believe that if you give the people the power of, let's say, having arms, their government wouldn't really dare to do something bad to them, because they would be up against an armed society. Really, they care about the market as well. They believe that market is very important, and that's how you are really free. Then there is the green quadrant, which is the libertarian left, and they are very loud on social media, I would say. And this is, again, I would say much of the younger generation actually associates themselves with this point until they grow up and get jobs. So these people are much more towards, they're attracted towards the ideologies of Marx and his works, and they believe in social democracy. They do not believe in free market capitalism to the point where other libertarians do. So there's a basic difference between the liberal left and the liberal right, and I'll explain what it is as the video goes on. Let's move on now. Alright, so this is again a small graphic that I put in to show what these ideologies really are and what these boxes really mean. We'll get ideologies later. So if you look at the blue box, there's a conservative guy here. He's wearing a MAGA shirt, MAGA cap, Make America Great Again. So he's a Trump supporter. The monarchist is up here. I think he is. Never mind. Then on the red part, you have Democratic Socialist Bernie Sanders here. Another very important thing that I did not tell you about the political compass would be, as you get closer to the next quadrant, which is not towards an extreme, you get more like that quadrant. So Democratic Socialist would be here, which is Bernie Sanders is here, but he's just above Angela Merkel, who's the liberal here in this cartoon. The Marxist would be just side of that. So very interesting here how this compass actually works. So there you go. Alright, so we're gonna go with the red quadrant first, and it's only appropriate we start with this. Alright, I think that's enough. I think we should move. Come on. Alright, so this is the red quadrant. Again, we talked about this. They hail from Marx and his works, and a lot of people, especially in the 20th century, were very attracted towards the works of Karl Marx. I would understand that decision because before that, the imperial forces had ravaged almost all of what is now third world, and these countries like the United Kingdom, France, they were often associated with capitalism. So I would understand why people did not like capitalism, because it wasn't capitalism, it wasn't free market, it was imperialism. So, and suddenly in Russia something happens, the Bolshevik Revolution, and all these, and it's the workers' revolution, and you finally see, okay, wow, uh, something can be done about this elite class, which is not fair to us. So these ideas took a lot of support during the last century. Did not end well. These policies, whenever they were tried, socialist policies were tried in any country, resulted in starvation, genocide. As I've talked about, you can talk about there is like 100 million deaths just in the second half of last century. I'm talking about Soviet Union, the Stalin. I'm talking about China under Mao and Pol Pot in Cambodia, and wow, really, really good place. Let's just talk about some of the ideologies here. So, would be the ideology of collectivism, and this resulted in the giant leap forward that also killed a lot of people. Trotskyism is a mild form of Marxism. It actually is very, very consistent with Marxist belief that you would not get the revolution just by liberating the workers from your country, but you have to liberate workers from every country, basically the whole world. So, and he was a comparatively more liberal guy. Left-wing populism is another ideology which I would want to talk about here, and we'll talk about Bernie Sanders later as well. As you can see, it's really just above the green quadrant, which is the liberal quadrant. So we'll see how it works. And then if you look at here, it's something called eco-fascism. Again, really, really interesting. Um, Let me just move forward. Point of view, you have an opinion in an off left country. It really is very sad how these countries did not really care about any civil liberties. The ideas again, it's an anti-West, anti-imperial sentiment prey on. Um, you cannot own private property. You don't have any freedoms. Everything is governed by the state. Everything is run by the state. This does not, of course, result in anything that is good. The government often fails on promises. They do not really produce the same way as the Western countries do, especially during what happened in the two nations where the US flourished while the Soviet Union couldn't do so. At one point of time, there used to be 10 years of waiting list to just get a car. So I've been told from President Reagan. So they were so attached to this ideology last century, in this century. Again, left-wing ideologies are very, very popular among students because they don't have jobs, and they often so a left-wing person would often talk about equality and how everyone should be equal, and how people like Jeff Bezos should exist, people who literally have more wealth than countries combined. So it makes sense, but then again, the policies do not really make sense, and when they have been applied, uh, they don't really end well. Communism in general is a totally different thing. So communism aims for a classless society, a society where no money is required, where you do what you love. And socialism is sort of the Trojan horse that allows you to go to communism, and that's how socialist governments justify themselves. We have never seen a communist government, obviously, because often given reasons. but communism still looks like a much better prospect. But I, for one, do not think we could ever reach a place where everyone is equal. Um, so yeah, and socialism will always precede it, as talked about, um, as the Marxists say, and I don't think the world can risk a socialist country. So yeah, that's the red quadrant in general. So again, we just saw this. Maybe we have an opinion in a north-left country, which is authoritarian left country. So you, frankly, you won't end well. So I'm gonna do this again and again. I'm gonna put this page on, and I'm gonna tell you where people actually are. So we'll talk about the left quadrant here. So Stalin is just top right here. Like, he is the one who took it to the most extremes. So Mao, Lenin still extremes, but not that much. Bernie Sanders, as you can see, is right down here, who really is actually on the divide. I would actually say in the green quadrant, but this graphic does not agree with me. China, Pakistan is a dictatorship. So, and they believe in government holding almost all of the resources. So I can understand why they are. China, obviously, Mugabe again. So let's move forward. This is the United States. This is actually, so now we're going to discuss the blue quadrant, that is the authoritarian right.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me.
Alright, so I wanted to focus on the lyrics there. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. So yeah, it's really not fair to put America in the authoritarian right quadrant, but because they are very libertarian in nature as well, but we'll know why. So let's move forward. Alright, so just before starting, this is a very interesting thing I found. So one thing both left and right can agree on in authoritarian terms is, imagine trusting people with their freedom. They can't really trust people with their freedom. So very, very funny in my opinion. Alright, so this is the blue quadrant. Again, a lot of ideologies, I can't go in detail in all of them. So there's classical fascism, Nazism on the top, and neo-fascism. So let's just talk about fascism for 1 second. So fascism and Nazism are often looked at, or at least shown to us, as right-wing ideologies, and that Hitler was a right-wing dictator. But if you look at his record and if you look at his economic policies, he was really at the center of both left and right. And his style of economy was a national socialist economy, something which we see in China right now. So the government does not own all means of production, but it owns all the people who produce stuff. So the government will always pick 2 or 3 companies or 2 or 3 industries that they like, and they will only support those business owners. So Hitler also had his group of top entrepreneurs, or let's say top business owners, and they worked for the state. They worked as the state pleased. This is something we see in today's China as well. In China also, if you see a couple of, or like every industry has one company that is the darling of the CPC, Huawei. Huawei is the only tech company that you will see out of China. That doesn't mean there are many, but that gets all the support. Same with Alibaba.com, which is run by Jack Ma. You won't hear any other name. So really, I mean, talking about Hitler, I would say he was more on the socialist side as well. Not to mention Nazis have socialist in their name itself. And another reason why Hitler can't be a free market is because Hitler was a control freak. He was a totalitarian. What kind of totalitarian leader will allow the market to be free? It really doesn't make any sense. So, yeah. So this is my opinion. People calling Hitler a right-wing dictator. It really doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. So that's just my 2 cents. I would actually put it closer to socialism than any other right, let's say conservatism. Coming back to this thing. Yeah. So we'll see many things here. So we'll talk about Reaganism. We'll talk about neoconservatism. We are talking about liberal conservatism. So let's just talk about conservatism to start with, which is the parent ideology of all. So, conservatism basically means, or let's say it was defined by William F. Buckley in the last century, and Reagan took it forward. So, conservatism basically means to conserve the current situations in the society. So, they would like to conserve things. So, they are for change, but the change should be slow. All right, so American conservatism would really mean that um, you protect the family, you protect the freedoms that you get, you protect the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, which is to own guns. That's what conservatism means. And then we talk about Make America Great Again, Trumpism, which is something very, very new and something very interesting. Again, towards the left, even in the right quadrant. So let's just talk about Reaganism. All right, so Reagan gave this speech, this quote, speech in 1990. He was running against Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter at that time. The most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Very, very interesting. I mean, this man is really running for office. He wants to be the head of the government, and he's talking like this about the government. So it really doesn't make sense, does it? I don't think so. Another quote would be, "Government is not the solution to our problem, government is the problem." So the conservative right really took a turn towards not really liking the government. All right. They believe in lower taxes. They believe that the government should allow the market to do what they want. They believe the government shouldn't really interfere in people's right to choose which gender they want to marry. And so it really took a turn, and we can call it Reaganism, we can call it neoconservatism, which really is what currently the Republican Party follows. So neoconservatism basically means that they are for free trade, they are for immigration, and they believe that the government should be small. George Bush and his father George H.W. Bush are neoconservatives. I would even say Bill Clinton conservative, looking at his policies, even though he was from the Democratic Party and had a much more liberal outlook. And then we have neoliberals as well, who believe were a bit more liberal, of course, and neoliberals would be Obama, current President Biden, American President Biden. He's a neoliberal, although he is acting more and more like Bernie Sanders through his policies, but all his career he has been a neoliberal. All right, and neoliberals also believe the government should be small and it shouldn't really interfere with the people's right to choose whatever they want. All right, now we talk about this big man, in 2015. So he really brings out a new form of conservatism. We don't really have a name for it. I would say it's let's just call it Trumpism. He has enough to have an ideology after his name. So his policies are also very conservative. If you look at it, he believes in God, he believes in he doesn't drink, he doesn't do stuff like that. But he also identifies the flaws in the system. He identifies flaws in the banking system, in the education system. He doesn't trust the free market as well he would. As well as someone else would, like a George Bush would. He doesn't trust free trade agreements. He is a bit towards the left when it comes to economics. He doesn't like globalization. He got back from Paris Climate Accords. He got back from the WHO, the UN. He did not care much about NATO. He did not care about. These are traditionally left-wing positions. Left-wing people seem to like that. In fact, his policies were so anti-establishment at the time of running. People who would have voted for Bernie Sanders actually, did not vote for Hillary Clinton, who was from his party. They actually voted for him. So very very interesting there. Trump again really shook the world, and there's something also conservatives as well. And the U.S. now is seeing that the freedom they give to the corporates for the last 20, 30 years or even 40 years is backfiring at them. The big tech censorship is one thing. Twitter was able to ban President Trump, the president of the United States, the greatest, the most powerful person in the world. So now they're hitting back at them. They're actually trying to cut their freedoms and getting back into the market. So really interesting turn conservatism took under his watch. So I would definitely say Trumpism is a new sort of ideology or new sort of new way of looking at things. Very interesting. All right, so this is again a meme. How much of religion this box? The Holy Bible is proven to be 100% accurate. They believe in the Bible a lot when thrown at a close range, especially. So religion plays a huge role. Catholic theocracy or any theocracy is another ideology that comes in this bracket. It could even be Islamic theocracy. But we can't talk about all of them. So yeah, we'll just go. They are again conservatives, and Barack Obama, Narendra Modi, Boris Johnson, Bolsonaro in Brazil, they're all conservatives, like very, very conservative. People often get a shock when, especially young people in the United States, when they learn that even their left-wing party is very, very conservative. If you look at the policies, even Barack Obama, who was hailed as a liberal guy who's going to change the system, he was as establishment as it gets, and he was on the authoritarian right side of things. The way he handled 2000 financial crash was by giving banks a bailout. He did not make the banks pay. So I guess we're talking about banks now. So let's just move to the next quadrant, which is the libertarian right quadrant. Before that, let's just look at this authoritarian right and authoritarian left debating which ideology has caused fewer genocides. I mean, this is the truth. Like, both have been very, very bad for humanity, especially in the recent past. They haven't been good at all. And what it shows is that big government is not the solution. Small government is the solution. And that the liberal way forward is, or the classical liberal or libertarian way is the way forward. So yeah, let's move on. Alright, the yellow quadrant. The reason why I have an image of New York here is because that's where the Wall Street is, and I would say this quadrant is responsible for the city. I would just go on and say that, because they know how to make money, they know how to make people work. So let's just get ahead. Alright, so before we get into it, let's just look at a quote from Milton Friedman, who is a very interesting economist slash philosopher of the last century, and he put a lot of faith in the free market, and he did not really like the government. So he just said that if you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, in 5 years there'd be a shortage of sand. So you can see he's actually trying to say that the government spoils the market and the government should stay away from the market. Very interesting man, we'll get into his philosophy later. We have some of the ideologies if you look at them. So there's social liberalism, order liberalism, democratic liberalism, national liberalism, neoliberalism, organism, minarchism. Very interesting, we look at it, and anarcho-capitalism. So okay, yeah. So basically what this quadrant wants is to be left alone, and that's what they want. They focus on freedom more than anyone else. This quadrant in a nutshell believes that government is the root of all the problem, despite they're left or right. So in their opinion, they only have two things, which is small government and big government. They put fascism, communism, socialism all in the same bracket, and the reason why there was so much, there was a genocide, there was all sorts of things in these countries was because that just because the government being so big, so they hate the government. They hate the government, and they value freedom more than, in my opinion, they value freedom more than any other quadrant. All right, they believe in rights. This is where the classical liberalism comes in place. Classical liberalism is also libertarianism, in my opinion. All right, and they believe that in order to run a perfect society, you need to distribute power. That means the market should have power. Market should be independent of the government. The government should have certain power, and other entities like civil society should have certain power. But no single entity of all should get all the power. So this is what this quadrant really wants to say. It's very interesting. It's a quadrant I personally identify with a lot, and they wouldn't really want to be. They just want to be left alone, this quadrant, and they are very very skeptic of the government. All right. So and they believe in lower taxes, like very low taxes. Some of them even believe that taxation is theft, which is very interesting. So we'll just look at a couple of ideologies here. So one would be classical liberalism that I talked about. Then I talked about the philosophy of Milton Friedman. Hayek is another economist who talks about this ideology. Monarchism is very interesting. Monarchism basically says that the government should only exist to prevent people's rights, and it should protect people's rights and should protect people's rights from all sorts of invaders. This basically means that also these people believe that the rights are not given by the government; they're given by God to everyone. All right. So even though they are there on the right, they'll actually blame the left wing for everything. So let's say you talk about the caste system, or let's say slavery. So the reason they would give is government. Government laws cause slavery because they did not give black people the same rights. If the government had given black people the same rights, it would all be fine. So that's what they believe in. All right. Very very interesting. And then monarchism basically means that the government should have a night watchman's role, and it shouldn't do anything except protect people's rights. Anarcho-capitalism is a radical ideology, as I talked about. You can see this is what it means. So anarcho-capitalism, or often called as ANCAP, means you means that the government shouldn't exist and only corporates should exist, and it should basically be the fight, the survival of the fittest. So if there is no government, there is no operation. Basically they mean that they are not even wars, by the way. They don't like wars. They don't like wars that and they don't, the reason why they don't like wars is not usually because they care about the kids in Yemen or care about the kids in Iraq. The reason why they don't like war is because their money is being spent, and it's not worth it. So that's basically it. Very interesting quadrant, in my opinion. A lot of people would actually agree with this. A lot of people become this quadrant once they get jobs because they understand they have to pay taxes. So very very interesting. And when I think of liberalism, I think it's the point of running society. We can talk about, and also they're against like healthcare. They're against universal healthcare. They're against anything that puts them in a bracket with people like a social security net. They're against it all, which are some of the, I would say, the negative points. But the focus is again on individual. No other quadrant has more focus on the individual. Don't tread on me. So many people think that because of the mainstream media and because of appropriation by some people, that this is some Nazi symbol. It's not. It's actually a very very interesting symbol from the 1770s. It's called the Gadsden flag. It says "Don't tread on me." What it basically shows is that this snake wants no one to tread on him. He wants to mind his own business. He's doing his own thing. and he and if you tread on him, he'll bite you, or let's say a human with guns would shoot you. Very, very interesting. Again, this is not a Nazi symbol at all. This is actually a symbol of freedom, in my opinion. It's been appropriated by some people, and that's why I understand why there would be an association with the Nazis, but there really isn't. So that's that. All right, let's move forward. So another Milton Friedman quote: "One of the great mistakes to judge policies and programs is by their intentions rather than their results." Very interesting. I mean, this basically destroys any communist or socialist argument ever. Yes, you want a equal society, but we're not going to let you kill 30 million people if you want that. Very, very interesting. And free market and capitalism has shown that it saves lives instead of killing them. If you look at the pandemic emerged from a communist country who couldn't handle their own people, and now we have a vaccine after 1.5 years, and that vaccine was possible because of Operation Warp Speed. That was the result of a capitalist country and a free market country. So again, communism killed many people, and capitalism tried to save it. Um, Very interesting. Alright, so this is another meme I found. If we all stop paying taxes, the government couldn't afford to stop us. So very interesting. Some of them think taxation is theft, think that the government does not do a good job with their taxes, just do for some things, and the government actually wastes money. And the better way of going forward is to put your trust in corporates, which essentially means trickle down economics, going back to Ronald Reagan. Very interesting. Another very interesting tweet I found was another libertarian right guy saying, "Decided I will no longer be paying taxes. What are they going to do? Tax me more? Go ahead. I won't pay those too. Oh, I'm going to prison. The one paid for by my tax dollars. Sorry, didn't pay them. Now there is no prison. I am at least 3 steps ahead of the government at all times." Very, very interesting. They don't like taxes much, and they want to cut taxes, and they want people to do people to use their own money, basically, be the judge of their own. Or The Wolf of Wall Street is a very basic movie, I would say, that explains this quadrant. They don't like the government much, they don't like the feds, they don't like the SEC. Very interesting. I wish in India we had a government that was more libertarian, right? Where they talk about the Indian government being conservative, but they're only socially conservative. I mean, if you talk about the economic policies, there are 2 steps left of Bernie Sanders. So, yeah. Alright, so again, I look at these things. So, George Washington was a libertarian. He is here. Jefferson is a libertarian. Friedman, which who did that twice. Yeah, and these are the ones. Alright, the last quadrant, the green quadrant, the one the loudest on social media, and a lot of people love this quadrant, and that's a photo of Bernie Sanders, and I think he, in my opinion, embodies that quadrant, at least economically speaking. Alright, AOC is another one, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So she is another progressive. They also call themselves progressive. I should use this term. Basically, the opposite of conservatives. Conservatives want to conserve the status. Progressives want to change it. Very interesting matchup. Alright, so these are the ideologies, and we'll be looking for a few of them. So towards the center is welfare capitalism, then there's welfareism, Luxembourgism, market socialism, mutualism, and yeah. So it's very interesting quadrant. They believe that they are also liberals, but they are not as classical liberals as the yellow ones are, which we discussed before this. They believe that the government should actually protect people. They are again towards Marxist side of things. They want a bigger government. They want the rich to pay their taxes. They want everyone to pay taxes. Basically, they want the government to have major things done. So therefore, free healthcare, and they are very, very pro immigration. They are actually pro illegal immigration as well. Another thing about, all right, we'll discuss that later. But they're very pro-immigration. They are very pro-activism in a way. So the right would defend their freedoms by not wanting anyone to crush them, but the left would actually ask for them. So a lot of the LGBTQ stuff comes from this quadrant. The climate change activism comes from this quadrant. Greta Thunberg would probably be here somewhere. She believes in climate change a lot, I should say, doesn't like climate change a lot. So it really is, I mean, activism. A lot of activism happens. Classical Marxism again. Uh, Very, very interesting. So welfare capitalism would basically be that you would want corporates to not be as free as they are. They basically want to curb the freedom of the market. A key distinction between the left and the right libertarians would be, um, let's talk about, let's look at an issue and then try to understand what they want. Alright, so let's talk about transgenderism. So transgenderism is very, very interesting. So, and transgenders often want their own pronouns, their made-up pronouns, which are not the ones we learn from, childhood. So a libertarian, a green person, let's just say here, a leftist would say that the government should actually force people, or like, let's say, release a law that compels people to use pronouns. Now their intention is good because they want to facilitate transgenders, but they're also curbing at freedom of speech at the same time, because free speech, because someone else cannot tell me what to say unless I'm not defaming, which you're not right now. So a person on the yellow quadrant would say that a right wing person say that no, you can't really do that because it's my choice. I can use whatever word I want. I would use your pronouns, but the government has no business of telling me what I want. Again, very interesting. So this is basically the basic difference, I would say. Um, yeah, these people are very pro-abortion as well. Gandhism, Mandelaism, market socialism, liberal socialism. So Bernie Sanders comes into picture here. Now he's, in my opinion, the green quadrant. He believes that the government should have a much more important role in the market, and so these people are socially liberal, but they want to control the economics more. This is how I would look at them. They're very loud, very enthusiastic too, very interesting. Progressives, as you would call them. All right, they often want to come for free speech because they're often enemies of comedy as well. They don't like funny stuff. I mean, stuff that can be insensitive, stuff like that. So you can see the three quadrants laughing, ha, funny, but they like it. So sometimes they can be irritating, but I think they're very important parts of the society because they are the ones that bring change, which is very interesting. And this is how I see conservatives and liberals working in a tandem. The job of a liberal would be to move society forward, to cut down the injustices. But a job of a conservative would be very important in terms of controlling that, because rapid change can often result in bad things. The workers' revolution was a rapid change, and it's also so very, very interesting dynamic right there. This is very interesting. Cubans driving their 60-year-old piece of shit car, Soviet cars, OMG, that's cool retro aesthetic, and these people really care about such stuff. So yeah. Alright, so now I'm gonna finish this thing. I actually exceeded my time, apologies for that. But I'm gonna talk about some of the major issues these quadrants usually focus on. So immigration. So I couldn't find much on what the authoritarian left wants to say about immigration, but I can go back to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is in the Democratic Party, but he's not very pro-immigration because he respects the rights of the workers in the United States, and he believes that the workers would be heard by open immigration. So he doesn't like immigration that much. Conservatives do not like immigration because sometimes immigrants are outgroups, and outgroups can, in their opinion, pollute the society, and they don't want that. They want a homogeneous society. Some of them, not all of them. So I would say they're not very pro. The yellow quadrant would be pro-immigration because immigration would bring out people who are willing to work for very cheap labor. So, and they all, most of them only care about money and like getting themselves by. They don't care about activism and all. So they would actually agree to immigration, but only legal immigration, not illegal immigration. The green quadrant that we just discussed would love immigration because they don't have a very good understanding of economics, and they believe that the US, or let's say any major country, because that's where you immigrate to, was responsible to some sort of famine or operation in the world. So now we need to let these people in. Marriage, again, very interesting. I think the top two would disagree with that. Stalin was against LGBT rights. I mean, that's a stretch. The lower ones would actually care about it a lot. Economy, the left would want to control the economy much more. The right, the conservative, the blue right would not let the economy be free. But if it was left to the libertarian right, I mean, they would abolish the government. So just to earn a few extra bucks. Abortion, very interesting. Abortion. So again, I researched a bit on it. So I do not know how the situation was of abortion was in Soviet Union, but I do know if they were open to it, it would definitely be free because of free healthcare and free government services. One good thing about them. The conservative right would be anti-abortion, obviously, because religion, and they think it's murder, which is subjective. The green column would obviously be pro-abortion. I mean, the yellow quadrant would be. So this is very interesting. So whether they will be or they would not be. If abortion means that they earn more money, they would definitely go for it. But if it's a situation like the Planned Parenthood, which in the US handles all the abortion, is funded by taxpayer money, they would absolutely be against it. But I think they would be in favor of abortion in general because it's a personal choice. So they would be in favor, but they would not be in favor of Planned Parenthood. Climate change, again, very, very interesting. So the right does not really believe in climate change as such. I mean, they do believe in climate change, but they also think that climate has been changing forever. So it's not our job to do anything about it. Again, you can have nuances on that. The quadrant, in my opinion, doesn't care about climate change at all, but they just want to critique capitalism whenever they can, so they will critique it. I don't think they care for climate change. The green quadrant is about everything the climate change activists have, so they would be very, very against climate change. So yeah, race, again, very interesting. So the communists don't see race as such. So the red quadrant wouldn't care. The blue quadrant can be racist sometimes, especially in the top half. They can be. So that's not good. The lower quadrants, the yellow quadrant wouldn't care about race at all because again they live in a free market situation. They want to give the job to the best person possible. They want to give the job to the best person possible, irrespective of race, etc., like all sorts of identities. So in a free market situation, I don't think we'll have any racial discrimination. The green quadrant is very interesting. I do not know where they stand on race. They're not classically liberal. They believe in affirmative action, which is negative discrimination. They want to give, let's say in America, they want to give black people special privileges that white people do not have. Not all of those, but some of them, like the critical race theory, which basically um, condemns white people for doing almost everything. So I wouldn't actually call them very equal on that. They would put the minorities on top of majority though. That's there. So yeah, this is a meme. All the three quadrants believe abortion and murder, and the last one did not. But yeah, I guess this is it. So that was my video. Apologies for going over time. I love making this video. This is the first time I ever did anything like this. I have some knowledge about this. I couldn't fit everything, obviously, but I hope you like it. And a feedback from you would be would mean the world. So I'll sign off then.